Growing up as a gamer during the 5th and 6th generations was quite an exciting time. This was the time when consoles were saying goodbye to the 2D side-scrollers and saying hello to the 3D platformers. It was the new frontier that brought us classics like Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, the Crash and Spyro games, and, well, too many to list. It was also around that time that a little movie by a small indie company called Toy Story came out. You may have heard of it. If you haven't, then I must ask, how is life under the rock? Well, I'm one to talk. Have you seen my den? Anyway, when I was a wee pup, my brother and I were obsessed with Toy Story. One of my first Halloween costumes was a homemade Buzz Lightyear costume that my grandmother made. Sorry, no picture sadly. My brother had a cowboy hat that he refused to let leave his head. Heck, we even had a Christmas Buzz Lightyear. That we have since lost and will likely never get again. It's a little fuzzy, but back in 1999, I remember seeing the trailer. The little aliens from Pizza Planet looked up and saw that title, Toy Story 2. I had to see it. Now, I can't remember if we got to see it in the theaters, but I definitely remember watching the VHS tape so many times, I'm surprised I didn't ruin it. My parents had noticed. My dad had a computer that I'd play games on, and one day, he came home with the first game that I would ever 100% complete. Also one of my favorite games of all time, Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue. This game was released in November 1999, around the movie's theatrical release, and it was developed by Traveler's Tales, who had made the first Toy Story game, and would go on to make 2 Crash Bandicoot games and the LEGO games we all know and love. LEGO Star Wars, anyone? For Toy Story 2, there was a version released on PC, PS1, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, and there was a version on the Game Boy Color made by Tiertex, but that's another video for another time, as it's a completely different game. For this review, I actually took a look at 2 versions of it, the Dreamcast release and the Nintendo 64 version. So without further ado, let's look at Toy Story 2. So what's with this game? At its core, Toy Story 2 is a 3D platform collectathon in the vein of Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, except you know what Buzz gets that Mario and Banjo don't? A real freaking laser.
It's not a laser, it's a little light bulb that blinks.
No, it's a real laser.
You mean the laser that's a light bulb?
Nope, totally real. Though it burn marks, other toys get decimated by it, Buzz is not screwing around this time. Obviously, the game follows the events of the movie and uses clips of it to help tie together the levels you explore. And just in case you haven't seen this now 24-year-old movie, allow me to summarize the premise. While trying to rescue a fellow toy from a yard sale that Andy's mom is running, Woody is kidnapped by a toy store owner and collector, Al. Buzz, along with Ham, Slinky, Rex, and Mr. Potato Head, go on a quest to rescue Woody and to bring him back home before Andy arrives. What sets this game apart from other 3D platformers released at the time is that you play as a toy and you explore to-scale locations, like Andy's house and Al's toy barn, in search of Pizza Planet tokens. Why Pizza Planet tokens? They don't even go there in the movie. Well, unless you count that scene where they steal the Pizza Planet truck. No, you do not get to play that. The tokens are pretty much the stars or jiggies of this game. Each level contains 5, and you need at least 1 from each level to gain access to the next, with the exception of the boss levels. There are 15 levels in all in a series of 3. 2 exploration levels, followed by a boss of that area. Most of these levels and bosses are based on locations and characters of the movie, like Zurg or Al's penthouse. Others were made by the creative minds at Traveler's Tales, like a fight against a toy bomber plane or passing through a construction site. As stated earlier, exploration levels have 5 Pizza Planet tokens, and each one is collected in a similar manner. You must gather 5 missing items and give it back to the owner, collect 50 coins to give to Ham. Wait a minute, aren't you on this quest too? Traitor? Fight the level's mini-boss, win a race against RC, the level's guest, or a speed challenge, collect a token by solving a puzzle, or just finding the hidden token by doing some platforming. Some of these require unlockable gadgets that Mr. Potato Head will give you if you find and return to him a missing part. Look at this attention to detail. He can't speak without his mouth, and the game totally writes it like that. In the exploration levels, Buzz is accompanied by his friends. There's Rex, who'll give you tips, Mr. Potato Head, whom we've just talked about, Ham, who we've also talked about, and in some levels, you'll find Slinky, who will provide your speed challenge for that level. More on this later. What's cool about this is that most of the film actors actually return to give their characters new lines specific to the video game. Have a listen.
Hey, Buzz. Thanks, Buzz.
Bravo,
go, Space Ranger. Excellent job.
Over here, Buzz! Ah, you did it!
Great going, Buzz.
Ah, that's the ticket. Here you go, Buzzy boy.
Looks like we got ourselves some bouncy boots.
As for the main boss levels, they each have a dedicated stage where it's eerily quiet until you take a few steps forward. When you do that, the music kicks up, and it's go time. As the movie Toy Story 2 only had our heroes facing Zurg and the Prospector, the developers had to get creative. No, fighting Al is definitely out of the question. In order, you fight a toy bomber plane in Andy's neighborhood, a trash can of slime in an alleyway, a mothership at Al's toy barn, the evil Emperor Zurg near Al's apartment, and a final fight with Stinky Pete and two of his cronies who were also mini-bosses in some earlier levels. Each have a different but simple strategy. Well, except for the slime boss, where all you have to do is spam the laser to shrink it until it's dead. I swear, I almost broke my parents' keyboard on this fight. Thankfully, the developers anticipated this. You'll get the hyper laser at his final phase so you can easily take him out. Beating each boss rewards you with another clip from the movie. Back then, this was a reward. Remember, this was before YouTube. Let's go back and look at the levels themselves. Playing as a toy, everything is from a different point of view. Andy's simple bedroom. Why is he sharing a room with his baby sister? Well, the room becomes a platforming tutorial. The aisles of Al's toy barn become an obstacle course, and a tarmac becomes an even bigger area where you'll need rocket boots and climbing on the plane itself just to get around better. The pure whimsy of playing as a toy in a believable world is captivating. Especially with the laser. As Buzz Lightyear,
I am Buzz Lightyear. I come.
not only does he have the laser, but he also comes with a lot of bells and whistles to help his traversal through this game. You can double jump, charge the laser for a more powerful attack, use a spin attack that also charges. It damages enemies, and it deflects their projectiles too. You can aim in first person for a more precise shot, climb up ledges as well as ropes, and stomp to activate switches. Some of the things you do just to get a Pizza Planet token are hilarious to me. Let's take the bathroom in Al's penthouse. You need to collect one of Jesse's critters, who's at the top of the area. There are sponges all around. So what do? Well, naturally, you flood Al's bathroom and use the sponges as platforms to collect the critter. Remember, according to the movie and the Etch-a-Sketch map that you choose your level at, Al is living at the top. I'm imagining his neighbors below him getting water damage and angrily coming after him. Good luck explaining that, you greedy bastard. Hope you have good insurance. This being an early 3D platformer, there are definitely a few growing pains. Some platforms can be thin, like in alleys and gullies, or some distances aren't quite clear with how far Buzz will need to launch toward them. Let's also remember that this was the era before smooth camera controls. Having said that, I do think that Traveler's Tales were well aware of this. For example, Buzz's laser has an auto track, so if you're near an enemy and you start firing, Buzz will automatically lock on and blast that enemy away. This also saves you some time from using the first person view just to take out some small enemies. Here's a little tip for you too. If you're having some trouble with the camera, just leave the controls alone for a second. The camera will automatically swing around Buzz's back, and you're good to go. Buzz also doesn't take any fall damage, and in levels that you need to return to a lower level, this totally makes backtracking a lot easier. Buzz also can grab onto ledges that he can't quite double jump to. Now that we've covered the basics, let's look at what you must do in each level and break it down a little bit. For finding the 5 missing objects, the game helps you out by having a specific noise for each of those objects to tip you off that you're nearby one. Let's look at the level Alleys and Gullies. You must find and return 5 baby duckling toys to their mother. In the market area, as I was climbing the flat watermelon shelf, I heard some quacking. I looked around and I didn't see any ducks. I continued my tasks and found out that I was able to get on top of the awnings. Sure enough, after unlocking the rocket boots in a later level, I found the missing duck above the melons. Not every level requires you to unlock a gadget to get the 5 missing objects, but some of them will. As long as you're observant and keep an open ear, this isn't too difficult of a task to do. Except for the rats and elevator hop. Hamp's 50 coin token is by far the easiest task in every level. The developers were incredibly generous with the placement of the coins. Every enemy you destroy drops a coin as well. They'll only do this once though. If they respawn and you destroy them again, no coin. You can totally take advantage of this with enemies that fire other enemies at you, like this box of planes.
You don't want to be in the way when my laser goes off.
Ham is also usually in an easy to reach spot, so if you're in need of a Pizza Planet token, and as long as you pick up every coin you come across, you can easily get these. On to the race challenges. In each level, you also have to race for a token as well. These aren't always a simple lap race though. For example, in Al's Toy Barn, you'll have to talk to this rooster, who'll have you race to the front of the store to get a missing chick, but if you talk to him again, he'll challenge you to do it again, but in a shorter amount of time, but this time there will be a token at the end. Another variation on the race token will be a location and retrieval challenge. For example, in Al's Pet House, Bullseye, who can suddenly speak in this version, tasks you with finding 5 horseshoes and returning to him before the time is up. Slinky has a similar challenge in the construction level and in Alleys and Gullies. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but I'd like to give you another funny oversight tip here. In the second level, Andy's Neighborhood, RC will challenge you to a race. What you're supposed to do is unlock the rocket boots so you can beat him. Without him, he usually beats you every time. Or you could just be a dick by having RC crash into you and spin out for a bit. Yes, you can totally win the token this way. Hidden tokens aren't too difficult to find either. If you're into exploring, platforming, and willing to get your proverbial hands dirty, you'll find these in no time. Mostly. A lot of these hidden tokens are locked behind challenges. Some are easy, like this color mixing puzzle. Others are a bit frustrating, like the train puzzle in Al's Pet House. Let me elaborate a little bit. Bordering Al's train bed is a model train. There's a box nearby and a token on top of his bed. The idea is to change the tracks by stomping on nearby buttons with the goal of crashing it into a dead end so you can push the box, climb it, and get the token. Expect a lot of running back and forth as you follow the tracks to try to line it up. Mini bosses are also simple for the most part. After you find them, you either blast them or spin attack them until they're kaput. I won't give them all away, but I will admit that some of these are pretty creepy looking, like the flying Zerg kite, the spider mech, and the clown top. I don't know, they give me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies. Yeah, that. Let's talk visuals. Looking across both versions, I'll admit that this game has aged a bit. Things that should be modeled are flat 2D textures, objects that should be round are quite polygonal, and, well, look at these faces. Sheesh. Having said that though, you've got to remember, this was late 1999, and for that time, the environments definitely look beautiful. Take a look. You can definitely tell that detail was put in the environments to make sure that they fit into Pixar's world that the toys run around in. Especially now Spaceland. Like, I didn't know that the in-universe names for the little green men were Mr. Martian. While the game has definitely aged, I will say that it's still a good looking game. How about the audio? Well, let's begin with the sound effects, as I feel I can keep that brief. Overall, they're pretty stock. The lasers sound like lasers. Springs sound like springs. And water sounds like water. Sure, I've said this, but what's impressive is the attention to detail. Certain sound effects only play when you are close to them. Take the plane in the penultimate level, Tarmac Trouble. In the level, the plane that Woody is potentially on just circles the tarmac. Unrealistically, you can only hear it when you're close. But you can also hear the elevators moving in Elevator Hop. A lot of the sound effects from Buzz were just taken from the first movie, which totally isn't a bad thing. It helps you immerse yourself in the game better. But that also means his voice lines come from the first movie as well. He even has a few if you leave him standing idle.
No time to lose! You're mocking me, aren't you? You don't want to be in the way when my laser goes off. There seems to be no sign of intelligent life.
Well, that was uncalled for. An observation I found is depending on what version you play, Buzz has a different hurt noise and a different falling noise. Take a listen. real star of the audio, though, is the soundtrack. Each level matches the motif, but totally fits as a Toy Story tune. I have to seriously applaud the composers, and I hope I'm pronouncing them right, Andy Blythe and Martin Jostra. Hitting the ground running, Andy's house begins with an adventurous yet whimsical piece of music that motivates you to begin your quest. You've also got the industrial jam, fittingly, in the construction site. I won't give away all the music. This is one treat for the ears you should experience yourself, after all. I will share my favorite tracks, however. In the rainy alley and gullies, you are treated to a moving jazz track that features a distorted oboe. And I'm definitely a total sucker for the spaghetti western music of Alice Pet House. Now, it may not be a long game. If you know what you're doing, you can get through the whole game 100% in about 3 hours. But don't let that stop you from checking it out. It's not too difficult, but for what it lacks in challenge, it makes up for it with fun factor alone. Where else can you launch yourself from a truck onto a washing machine, to clothesline to a basket to retrieve a lost army toy? Can Mario take out a jackhammer on top of an unfinished building, then leap off like it's no big deal? Can Banjo run through and stunt across an aisle of lasers? No way. Despite this game being a childhood favorite, I actually came across a pretty big surprise and didn't realize it until this recent playthrough. Toy Story 2, the video game, actually has some censorship in it. Now I know what you're thinking, and no, this has nothing to do with John Lasseter. Let me illustrate my discovery. In the level Alice Pet House and later levels, I came across a small cowboy toy with blonde hair and a matching mustache who fired at me. You see, when I first played this game so long ago, this was not the enemy I'd faced. Here's how he originally looked. Doing my own research, apparently this bandito-looking character caused a group of Mexican Americans to peacefully protest outside Activision's headquarters. Yes, in November 1999, 120 people peacefully protested against what they considered to be a racist stereotype of the Mexican people. Personally speaking, I grew up watching movies like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Three Amigos, and thought that the intent was just to fit the Western motif of Al's abode. I am not Mexican though, so who am I to say? The protest worked, and versions of the game that released in Europe and after November 99, including the American Dreamcast version, changed this character to this generic blonde cowboy guy. It didn't change my enjoyment of the game though. The enemies literally do the same thing. I'm not trying to make a statement or anything, I just found this fact pretty interesting. As I stated earlier, I played the Dreamcast and Nintendo 64 versions for this review. Eagle-eyed viewers could probably tell which version was being played, well if you didn't see where I put the console's logo. During this time, Nintendo was notorious for not making the Nintendo 64 a CD-based console. As a result, a lot of cross-platform games had to make compromises for the lack of space. An excellent example of this would be the Tony Hawk games, like the first one. All the CD-based versions contain entire song soundtracks and video clips, both inside levels and as unlockable bonuses. The Nintendo 64 version had strange, compressed, and looped versions of the songs. And couldn't fit a single FMV file on the cart. I'm happy to say though that the Nintendo 64 version of Toy Story 2 trades off for its lack of features in a way that makes it a great experience either way. This version doesn't have the videos, but it has context for the levels given by screenshots and little cheesy blurbs. Load times are almost non-existent though. The music definitely took a hit here. Here, just listen. Surprisingly, the Nintendo 64 version does look better. Buzz's model is less pixelated, and this version actually had a better draw distance. Take a look at the footage side by side. In level 4, Construction Yard, I've just beaten the jackhammer boss in both versions. I noticed that I've completed another objective. Coincidentally, both token holders are in front of this shack at the beginning of the level. In the Nintendo 64 version, I can see very clearly which way to leap off to get to them. It's pure nothingness and a lucky guess on Dreamcast. This doesn't seem to be a problem on the PlayStation 1 version either. That's weird to me because I've always seen the Dreamcast as a step above both the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1. Look at Activision's Spider-Man for comparison. I don't know, maybe it's just a strange anomaly with the Dreamcast version? Back on point, you could play any version of this game and still have a great time. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough, and looking at history, neither could Sony. From 2011 and on, you could get this on the PlayStation 3, the PSP, PS4, PS Vita, and yes, even the PS5. And only for $6. You'd be hard pressed to find a better platformer for that cost. Yes, you can still buy it today. If anything I've mentioned about it interests you in the slightest, what are you waiting for? I hope you've enjoyed this look back on one of my favorite games of all time. As always, if you feel I've deserved it, leave a like on this video. And if you like my content, and well, maybe my voice, feel free to subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss an upload, and check out my other videos. I've just recently passed 100 subscribers, and I can't thank you guys enough. Your support does help this channel grow more than you could ever know. Be sure to keep an eye out for next time, because I feel like I'm a little overdue for it, but I'll be back with another video game life support. Until then, I'm GingerWolf, you are awesome, and I'll catch you next time.